typical of a new town development of its time. A lot of kind of low story development, quite bleak now, is that not aged well and it needs a real kind of reinvestment and regeneration. Over the 3 phases, we're looking at upwards of 350 homes. So we have a detailed planning application for phase 1, which will see a new church and community centre built on this land just here, and a new independent living scheme of 91 homes over on a site just to on the outskirts of the Oval. We've also had to work with partner organisations like Homes England to be able to secure grant funding to bring that in, and we've been able to do that across a couple of streams, both the Brownfield Infrastructure Land Fund and also their Affordable Homes programme as well.
Hello, I'm Toby Fox from 1.5 Million New Homes, the Local Government Challenge, sponsored by Redloft and Bugler Developments. And every month I'm visiting a different council to find out what works and what needs to change to get more homes built. This month, I've come to Stevenage. I've come up to meet Simon Nuttall, who's Head of Housing Delivery at Stevenage Borough Council.
So I'm Simon Nuttall. I work for Stevenage Borough Council. I'm our Head of Land and Development. So I look after our wider housing delivery programme. And we're here today at the Oval in Stevenage, which is one of the original kind of neighbourhood centres in the town, and in place in need of regeneration and kind of enlivening. So it's typical of a new town development of its time. A lot of kind of low story development, quite bleak now, is that not aged well and it needs a real kind of reinvestment and regeneration. So we've been developing plans for a scheme here, and we're now beginning to start on site and over a phased development over a number of years to bring new retail, new residential and new community spaces to this site.
Brilliant. Okay, let's dig into the details. So how big is the site? How many homes are we talking about?
So yeah, over the 3 phases, we're looking at upwards of 350 homes. So we have a detailed planning application for phase 1, which will see a new church and community centre built on this land just here, and a new independent living scheme of 91 homes over on a site just to on the outskirts of the Oval. There's new retail, so we're a replacement of the existing in terms of footprint, but a new efficient, better model, and part of that also includes provision for a new anchor retailer as well. So that brings in a much stronger covenant and a much better offer, as well as new opportunities and jobs for the locality as well. And then we've got the final phase, which sees the remaining residential, which will be about 250 homes that we're looking to deliver in that final phase, with retail and kind of amenity space around as well.
And over what kind of period of time is all of that
Yes,
be delivered?
It's a phased scheme, and the way we've designed it means that it's got to be done sequentially. Each phase we're looking at about 18 months to 2 years. So hopefully about 6 to 7 year build, but obviously you're going to have some kind of slower times during the transition. You've got existing tenants that we've got to move into new residential, and obviously it is an occupied residential and retail space as it is, so there's going to be times where we need to secure vacant possession, which will have an impact on the overall programme.
And have you got a lot of leaseholders here as well?
So we've done a lot of work over the kind of 3, 4, 5 years building up to this scheme to secure all of that private interest. So we are now the sole owner of the land, so that includes the residential units that have been lost to right to buy over the years. We've managed to buy that back. And we've done that through private treaty as well, rather than needing to use our CPO powers. And then we've worked alongside the other kind of existing freeholders. So the church that's on site here, they are a freeholder, but we've been able to work with them to design a new and better facility for them that fits their purpose. And we now have an agreement with them that once that is finished, they'll surrender their existing freehold and take on a new freehold there.
So you've talked about some of the challenges, Simon. You're building a new church for a start. Well, what other challenges are involved in a scheme of this scale?
Yeah, so I think one of the principal challenges is viability. So this scheme has been looked at over a period of kind of almost a decade, where other big parties, RSLs and developers have looked at it and have decided that actually it's not a viable scheme. And I think part of the reason for that is around some of those ownership challenges, but also the kind of complexity of the existing retail. And so we've had to work hard to develop a scheme that is able to protect the existing retail and the kind of vital income stream that is for the council, whilst we build a new and replacement income for that. And that's where that kind of phasing and the detail that's gone into that has been really kind of crucial to bringing forward a scheme. We've also had to work with partner organisations like Homes England to be able to secure grant funding to bring that in, and we've been able to do that across a couple of streams, both the Brownfield Infrastructure Land Fund and also their Affordable Homes Programme as well. And
how much are they putting in?
So across those two funds, it's about £20.5 million that they're bringing into the scheme in that first phase.
What's the total cost of the scheme?
So the total cost for the first phase is about £37 million.
Yeah.
And so in terms of that wider viability, that's made a massive difference in overcoming some of those challenges. And then that has a knock-on effect onto the latter phases, that actually we've been able to get an upfront investment, and that means that those later phases are able to retain their viability rather than it kind of falling off a cliff after that first bit.
What advice would you have for other councils that are going to Homes England for that funding? What was it about the business case you think that was successful?
Yeah, well, I think it's been a long process, and I think that's by design. And it's not just at the Oval. So we started talking to Homes England about the Oval back in 2021. And at that time, our designs were in an infancy, but it meant that Homes England have been invested from an early stage and have seen the progress and the development, and it's seen it progress into a scheme that they can kind of get behind and invest in. But also from a wider perspective, we host Homes England on a kind of regular basis. They come to sites, they come to schemes like Kenilworth Close that we've been at earlier today, and they see the quality of the product that we've put forward and the track record now of delivery, and they want to continue that working with us. But our early schemes with Homes England were a lot smaller. We utilised things like the NSAP and RSAP, the rough sleeper funds, to deliver smaller kind of unit numbers, but we were able to prove ourselves as a reliable partner as part of that process. And I think that kind of building that relationship and demonstrating ourselves to be a reliable partner has really helped our kind of overall working relationship and the trust to build that the case for larger funding opportunities that we're seeing now.
So, Simon, often we hear on estate regeneration projects that you need ballots in order to kind of bring them forward and so on. What kind of engagement did you get from local people?
Yeah, no, we've been really pleased with the level of engagement we've been able to kind of bring in here. And actually, that's by design. So we've done a multi-phase consultation. So we've had 4 separate kind of staged events, both in person and supported by a wider online consultation. And over the period of that consultation event, we had about 7,500 bits of engagement with the scheme, which is by far and away our largest engagement. But actually, what that started with in those first sessions was, what would you like to see here? What sort of things makes the Oval great, and actually what needs to change? But we're also clear with what needs to be in place in terms of our wider objectives. You would need a level of density. You would need to kind of retain some of that retail element. And as that's progressed, we've kind of done a very iterative process. We took very much a you said, we did type approach to the scheme, and over those kind of 4 sessions, we brought back the designs and how they'd progressed and the different kind of influences that the public had had. And what that resulted in was a planning submission that had no objections. It went through planning. Zero objections. And actually, that's kind of, that's the result of that really hands-on engagement, and we brought in all the stakeholders, the church, the retailers, the residents that live here, the wider public that use it, and put forward a scheme that it's hard to argue against when they've shaped it so kind of in-depthly and from the beginning. If they're criticising it, they're almost criticising their own kind of input into the scheme.
But nevertheless, how common is that sort of zero objection response?
It varies from scheme to scheme, but we typically find that the level of consultation that we do has brought down the scale of objections. And part of that is by being able to bring in a more positive voice. So we do that through kind of online surveys we promote through social media advertising, and people are then more willing for 5 minutes out of their day to fill in a survey rather than coming to a kind of more traditional town hall event.
Are you also talking to people beyond the estate itself?
Yes, absolutely. But as part of our surveys, we also make sure that we kind of keep track of where people are geographically. Yeah. So whether they're kind of in the immediate vicinity of the schemes or kind of use it. So particularly for the Oval, if they come for the retail. And then that also helps to drive some of the questions. So the Dun Close scheme that we were at earlier today, we were able to kind of point to some of the earlier objectors that actually people in close proximity to the scheme, there was a high level of support, but they weren't necessarily willing to put their head above the parapet in a local community and say, actually, no, I disagree with you, because it is contentious and there is differing.
And they don't want to be the person who's saying yes when other people are saying no.
When it is is such a strength of feeling, particularly in negative, that and those who are supportive, they don't necessarily share that same passion that you might if you're against a proposal.
So if you were to do all of this again, what would you do differently? What's the learning been over the period of time you've been delivering this scheme?
Yeah, I think for us, one of the big challenges has been around securing that funding early on. And I think there probably is more that we could have done. As much as we have had those really positive conversations with Homes England, I think outlining what our kind of real aspirational needs were, because you try and strike a balance of putting forward a pitch that's going to be acceptable and reasonable, but recognising that there might still be some wider viability challenges, but you want something to get approved. And I think actually in hindsight, we probably could have been a bit bolder from the start in terms of what our ask was and sell that as part of the wider vision that actually what that investment does is unlock all of this. And I think that's one of the big changes. I think our earlier kind of discussions with Homes England were perhaps a bit more timid than they could have been. And that's, I guess, because it was a new relationship with them, and we wanted to make sure that we seemed credible and that we could deliver the scheme.
But it sounds like you've also been on a journey as a team, as a council in housing delivery, that you've built up confidence in your ability to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and you see that in terms of the way the programme has developed over time. Our original schemes, when I first joined, the schemes I was responsible for were kind of 10 units, 14 units. Now we're completing on schemes of 350, 236 units, these wider kind of neighbourhood schemes. And I think as the team has progressed and developed their kind of trust in their ability and built their own skills, then we've been able to take on these kind of larger, more ambitious projects. So to some extent, you can't necessarily jumpstart that. We do have the benefit of of Ash, who comes with a wealth of experience that's been able to kind of...
That's Ash Ahmed.
Ash Ahmed, yes. Yeah. To bring that to bear in terms of the wider projects that we do. And I think that's helped because for me, I was recruited from within and learn everything I have learned on the job. But you do that through the opportunities and making sure that you work your consultants. You don't just get them on the projects. You learn and you take as much training as you can from them. And that's something that we are really kind of proactive about doing as a team. We get them as part of their kind of tenders. We encourage them to put forward training that they'll provide for the team as well. So it's not just work for a specific job. It's also our own in-house development and learning.
We're going to hear more about your in-house development and learning yourself, Simon, in another episode. But until then, in the meantime, thank you very much for your role in 1.5 million new homes.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for your time.
So that's it for another episode of 1.5 million new homes, the local government challenge, sponsored by Redloft and Bugler Developments. We're going to be back in a few days with more from Stevenage Borough Council. But until then, if you could hit like or subscribe, we'd be really grateful, and we'll see you next time.